Welcome back to a Book a Day podcast. This is December and I am back with more stories, more books. And the book that I'm going to be discussing for the next few episodes, from where I'll be narrating some short stories for you, is called Our Favorite Indian Stories. It was a collection published around a decade ago by Khushwant Singh and Neelam Kumar. And it contains stories from different Indian languages, but translated into English, of course. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrate these short stories for you, starting with an Urdu story. Urdu story written by the famous Urdu novelist and short story writer Ismat Chughtai, and the story is called Housewife. It has been translated into English by Fatima Ali. So without taking any of your time, let me start narrating the story straight away. It's a wonderful story, probably one of the finest written by Chughtai. It's called Housewife, and here we go. The day Mirza's new maid ambled into his house, there was a sensation in the neighborhood. The sweeper, who normally avoided work, stayed on and scrubbed the floor with great vigor. The milkman, notorious for adulterating his ware, brought milk clogged with cream. Who could have named her Lajo, the coy one? Bashfulness was unknown to Lajo. No one knew who begot her and abandoned her on the streets to a lonely, weeping childhood. Begging and starving, she reached an age when she could snatch a living for herself. Youth etched her body into bewitching curves, and this became her only asset. The street initiated her into the mysteries of life. She never haggled. If it was not a cash down proposition, it would be sex on credit. If the lover had no means, she would even give of herself free. "Aren't you ashamed of yourself?" people asked her. "I am," Lajo would blush brazenly. "You will regret it some day." I couldn't care less. How could she, with a face that was innocence itself, dark eyes, evenly set teeth, a mellow complexion, and a gait so swinging, so provocative? Mirza was a bachelor. Flattening and baking chapatis daily had flattened out his existence. He owned a small grocery shop which he pompously called General Store. The shop did not give Mirza any leisure even to go to his hometown and get married. Mirza's friend Bakshi had picked up Lajo at a bus stop. Bakshi's wife was 9 months pregnant and they needed a maid. Later, when Lajo was not required, Bakshi deposited her at Mirza's. Instead of squandering away at brothels, he thought, why not let Mirza enjoy a free dish? "God forbid, I won't have a tart in the house," said Mirza warily. "Take her back." But Lajo had already made herself at home. With her skirt hiked up like a diaper, broom in hand, she was sweeping in Mirza's house, dead earnest. When Bakshi informed her of Mirza's refusal, it fell on deaf ears. She ordered him to arrange the pans on the kitchen shelf and went out to fetch water. "If you wish, I will take you back home," Bakshi said. "Out with you. Are you husband to take me back to my mother's? Go. I will tackle the Mia myself." Bakshi's departure left Mirza helpless. He ran out and took refuge in the mosque. He was not prepared to incur this extra expenditure. Moreover, she was bound to pilfer and cheat. What a mess Bakshi had got him into. But on returning home, he held his breath. As though his late mother, B Amma was back. The house was sparkling. Shall I serve dinner, Mia? Laju asked and disappeared into the kitchen. Spinach and potato curry, moong ki dal fried with onion and garlic, just the way Ammaji used to cook. How did you manage all this? Mirza asked, baffled. Borrowed from the banya. Look, I will pay your return fare. I just cannot afford a servant. Who wants to be paid? But is the food hot? Laju asked, slipping a fresh chapati into his plate. Not the food, but I am certainly hot from top to toe. Mirza wanted to shout as he went into his room to sleep. No, Mia, I am here for good. Laju threatened when he brought up the question again the next morning. But didn't you like the food? It's not that. Don't I scrub and clean well? It's not that. Then what is it? Laju flared up. She had fallen in love, not with Mirza, but with the house. Bakshi, the bastard, had once rented a room for her. Its previous occupant had been Nandi, a buffalo. The buffalo was dead and gone to hell, but had left behind his stench, and Bakshi did not treat her well either. Now here she was, the unrivaled mistress of Mirza's house. Mirza was uncomplicated. He would sneak in softly and quietly and eat whatever was served. Mirza, for his part, checked the accounts a few times and was satisfied that Laju did not cheat. At times, she went across to Ramu's grandmother for a tete-a-tete. Ramu was Mirza's dissipated teenaged help in the store. He fell for Laju the minute he saw her. It was he who told her of Mirza's frequent visits to the singing girls. This hurt Laju. After all, what was she for? Wherever employed, she had served well in every capacity. And here, a full chaste week had passed. She had never felt so unwanted before. Several offers came her way, but she was Mirza's maid. She rejected one and all, lest Mirza should become a laughing stock. And here was Mirza, an iceberg, or so he appeared. Laju could not see the volcanoes erupting within him. He kept away from home deliberately. Laju's name was on every lip. Today she slapped the milkman. Yesterday she had aimed a dung cake full in the face of the bania, and so on. The schoolmaster insisted on educating her. The mullaji of the mosque burst into prayers in Arabic, beseeching God to ward off impending danger. Mirza came home annoyed. Laju had just had her bath. Strands of wet hair clung to her shoulders. Blowing into the kitchen fire had flushed her cheeks and filled her eyes with water. She ground her teeth at Mia's untimely entry. Mirza almost toppled over. After a silent, uneasy meal, he picked up his walking stick, went out, and sat in the mosque. But he could not relax. Ceaseless thoughts of home made him restless. Unable to hold out any longer, he got back and found Laju on the threshold quarrelling with a man. The man disappeared the moment he saw Mirza. Who was that? Mirza's tone was that of a suspicious husband. Raghava? Raghava? Mirza had been buying milk from him for years and yet did not know his name. Shall I prepare the hookah, Mia? Laju changed the subject. No, what was that man up to? Was asking me how much milk he should bring from now on. What did you say? I said, may God hasten your funeral, bring the usual mean. Sure. Then Mirza was furious. Then I said, bastard, go feed the extra milk to your mother and sister. The scoundrel, Don't let him set his foot here again. I will myself fetch milk on the way home from the store. That night, after dinner, Mirza put on a starched, freshly laundered kurta, stuck a scented piece of cotton wool in his ear, picked up his walking, and walked out. Jealousy wrung Lajo's heart. She cursed the singing girl and sat dumbfounded. Was Mirza really indifferent to her? How could that be? She wondered. The singing girl was haggling with a customer. This upset Mirza. He turned away and made for the Lala's shop. There, he cursed inflation, rising prices, national politics, and returned home at midnight, spent and irritated. He drank a lot of cold water, but the fire in him continued to blaze. A part of Lajo's smooth golden leg was visible from the open door. A careless turn in sleep tinkled her anklets. Mirza drained another glass of water and bundled up on his cot, cursing everything under the moon. Ceaseless tossing in bed reduced his body to a blister. Liters of cold water bloated his stomach. The roundness of the leg behind the door was irresistible. Unknown fears strangled him, but the devil egged him on. From his bed to the kitchen, he walked up so many miles, but now he couldn't move a step. Then an innocent idea crossed his mind. Were Lajo's leg not so exposed, he wouldn't be so uncomfortable. Gradually, this idea took strength, and so did Mirza. What if she woke up? Yet, he had to take the risk, for the sake of his own safety. He left his slippers under the cot, held his breath, and tiptoed across gingerly, lifted the hem of the skirt, and pulled it down slowly. He stood a while indecisively and turned away. With one move, Lajo grabbed him. Mirza was speechless. He struggled, pleaded, but Lajo wouldn't let him go. When he encountered Lajo the next morning, she blushed like a bride. Lajo, the victor, went about her chores boldly, humming a kajri. Not a shadow of the night's happening flickered in her eyes. When Mirza sat down to breakfast, she sat on the doorstep, as usual, fanning the flies away. That afternoon, when she brought his lunch to the shop, he noticed a new lilt in her guide. Whenever Lajo came to the shop, people would stop by and inquire about the price of groceries. She sold in a short while what Mirza couldn't during the entire day. Mirza began to improve in his looks. People knew the reason and sizzled with envy. Mirza, in turn, grew nervous and ill at ease. The more Lajo looked after him, the more he was enamored of her and the more afraid he was of the neighbors. She was utterly brazen. When she fetched his lunch, the entire bazaar throbbed with her presence. "Don't bring lunch anymore," he told her one day. "Why not?" Lajo's face fell. Staying home all by herself bored her. The bazaar was an interesting break. Having stopped her from coming, many doubts assailed Mirza. He dropped in at odd hours to spy on her, and she would insist on rewarding him fully for his attentions. The day he caught her at a game of kabaddi with street urchins, his anger knew no bounds. Her skirt was billowing in the wind. The boys were engrossed in the skirt. Mirza passed by, holding his head high with affected indifference. His discomfort amused the onlookers. Mirza had grown fond of Lajo. The very idea of separation drove him crazy. He was unable to concentrate on his shop. He feared that someday she might desert him. "Mia, why not marry her?" Miran Mia suggested. God forbid, he shouted. How could he form so sacred a relationship with a slut? But that very evening, when he didn't find her at home, Mirza felt lost. The confounded Lala had been long on the wait. He had offered her a bungalow. Miran Mia, a friend from all accounts, had himself made a proposition to Lajo on the sly. Mirza was losing hope when suddenly Lajo appeared. She had just gone across to Ramu's grandmother. That day, Mirza made up his mind to take Lajo for a wife, even at the cost of his family's pride and prestige. But why, Mia? Lajo asked, surprised at his proposal. Why not? Want to have a fling elsewhere? He asked crossly. Why should I have a fling? That Raoji is offering you a bungalow. I wouldn't spit on his bungalow. But the need for marriage completely escaped her. She was and would be his for life. A master like him was not easy to come by. Lajo knew what a gem Mirza was. All her previous masters inevitably ended up as her lovers. They would first have their fill, then beat her up and kick her out. Mirza had always been tender and loving. He had bought her a few clothes and a pair of gold bangles. No one in 7 generations of Lajo's family had ever worn ornaments of pure gold. When Mirza spoke of his plan to Ramu's grandmother, she too was surprised. Mia, why tie a bell around your neck? She asked. Is the slut making a fuss? A sound threshing will set her right. We're beating up can do. Why think of marriage? But Mirza was obsessed with the idea. You there, are you hesitating on account of the difference in religion? Ramu's grandmother asked Lajo. No, I've always regarded him as my husband. Lajo looked upon even a passing lover as a passing husband and served him well. Riches were never showered upon her, yet she gave of herself fully, body and soul. Mirza was an exception, of course. Only Lajo knew the pleasure of the give and take game with him. Compared to him, the others were pigs. Also, marriage was for virgins. How did she qualify to be a bride? She begged and pleaded, but Mirza was bent upon entering into a legal contract of the nikah. That day, after the evening prayer, nikah was solemnized. Young girls of the neighborhood sang wedding songs. Mirza entertained his friends. Lajo, renamed Kaniz Fatima, became wife of Mirza Irfan Ali Beg. Mirza imposed a ban on langas and prescribed churidar pajamas. Lajo, however, was used to open space between her legs. This new imposition was a big irritant. She could never get used to it. One day, at the first opportunity, she took off the pajamas and was about to get into the langa when Mirza turned up. In her confusion, she forgot to hold the skirt around her waist and dropped it to the floor. The devil take you! Mirza thundered a Quranic curse. He hurriedly threw a bedsheet over her. Lajo could not understand his annoyance and the grandiloquent oration that followed. Where had she erred? This very act had taken Mirza's breath away so many times in the past. Now he was upset. He picked up the langa and actually fed it to the fire. Mirza left, leaving Lajo shocked and uncomprehending. Discarding the sheet, she examined her body. Maybe some repulsive skin disease had erupted overnight. When bathing under the tap in the open, she kept wiping her tears. Mitwa, son of the mason, climbed the terrace daily on the pretext of flying kites and watched her. She was so sad today, she neither stuck out her thumb nor hurled a slipper at him. She wrapped the sheet around and went indoors. With a heavy heart, she got into the long trousers as long as the devil's intestines. To add to her misery, the cummerbund got lost inside the waistband. She shouted for help. Julu, the neighbor's daughter, appeared and the tape was located. Which sadist could have adapted this rifle case for a feminine dress? Laju wondered. Later, when Mirza returned home, the tape played truant once again. Laju tried desperately to catch it with her fingers. Mirza found her nervousness endearing. After a combined, concentrated chase, the tape was found. But a ticklish problem popped up for Mirza. What used to be intoxicating coquetry in Lajo now turned to brazenness in his wife. The indecent ways of a flirt are unbecoming to respectable women. Lajo failed to be the bride of his dream, one who would blush at his amorous advances, be annoyed at his persistence, and feign indifference to his attention. Lajo was a mere pavement slab. Checking her at every step, Mirza curbed her excesses and tamed the wild in her, or so he thought. Also, he was no longer impatient to get home in the evenings. Like all husbands, he spent more time with friends to avoid being labelled henpecked. To make up for his frequent absences, he suggested engaging a maid. Lajo was furious. She knew of Mia's renewed visits to the singing girls. She also knew that every man of the neighborhood went there. But in her own home, she would not tolerate another woman. Let anybody step into her kitchen and tinker with her glistening vessels, Lajo would tear her to bits. She would share Mirza with another woman, but certainly would not share her home. Mirza seemed to have installed Lajo in his house and forgotten all about her. For weeks he spoke only in monosyllables. When she was his mistress, all men had their eyes on her. Now that she gained respectability, she became mother, sister, and daughter. No one cast even a stray glance at the jute curtain, except the faithful Mitwa. He still flew kites on the roof, although only when Mirza was away and Lajo was bathing in the courtyard. One night, Mirza stayed away celebrating the Shera with friends. He came home the next morning and had a quick wash and went off to the shop. Lajo was annoyed. It was then, while bathing, that she looked up at the terrace, and maybe that day Mitwa's stairs pierced her wet body like so many spears. Suddenly, his kite snapped. The broken cord brushed sharply against Lajo's body. Lajo was startled. She got up quickly and ran into the room, absent-minded or deliberately forgetting to wrap the towel around her. From then on, Mitwa was always found hanging around Mirza's house. Whenever Lajo wanted something from the market, she would draw the jute curtain aside and shout, "Mitwa, don't stay put like a dunghill. Get us a few kachoris." If Mitwa did not appear on the terrace during her bath, she rattled the bucket loud enough to make a corpse in its grave. The love of which she had given so lavishly all her life was now Mitwa's for the asking. If Mirza did not turn up for a meal, she would never waste the food but feed someone poor and needy. Who was needier than Mitwa? Mirza was convinced that, chained to wedlock, Lajo had become a genuine housewife. Had he not seen for himself, he would never have believed it. Seeing him on the doorstep so unexpectedly, she laughed uproariously. She could not, even in her wildest dreams, imagine that Mirza would be offended. But Mitwa knew. Clutching his dhoti firmly with one hand, he bolted and stopped for breath only after he had crossed 3 villages. Mirza flogged Lajo so much that she had been made of softer stuff. she would have breathed her last. The news that Mirza had caught his wife with Mitwa spread throughout the village. People came in large numbers to watch the fun and were sorely disappointed to know that Mitwa, the hero, had fled and the wife lay dismantled. Ramu's grandmother arrived and took her away. One would think a flogging like that would turn Laju against the very idea of Mirza. Far from it. Beating helped her achieve what marriage could not. The bond was stronger. The minute she came to, Lajo inquired after Mirza. All her matters were forgotten. After giving her a sound thrashing, the question of pay was set aside. She slogged free and was beaten from time to time. But Mirza had always been good. Other masters had even loaned her to friends, but Mirza regarded her as his own. Everyone advised her to run away and save her skin, but she did not budge. How was Mirza to face the world? He was no way but to kill her in order to save his honor. Miran Mia held him back. Why must you stick your head in the noose for a bitch? Divorce the whore and forget her. Mirza divorced Lajo immediately and sent 32 rupees of maher, her clothes and other belongings over to Ramu's grandmother. When Lajo heard of the divorce, she heaved a sigh of relief. Nikah had proved unlucky. All mishaps had been due to that. Is Mia still angry? She asked Ramu's grandmother. Shall not set eyes on you. Wants you to get lost. Drop dead. The news of Mirza's divorce rocked the village. Lala sent out a feeler. The bungalow is ready. Dump your mother in it, Lajo retorted. After a fortnight in bed, Lajo was up on her feet again. The beating seemed to have spring cleaned her and left her more glowing than ever. When buying pan or kachori, she took the whole bazaar by storm. Mirza died 1,000 deaths. Once he spotted her at the baniyas arguing over something. The baniya drooled. Mirza left, avoiding notice. You are crazy, Mia. Why care for what she does? You have divorced her, haven't you? Miran Mia asked. She has been my wife once. If you want the truth, she was never your wife. What about the nikah? Well, thoroughly illegal. How? It was never valid. No one knows who begot her, and I suppose nikah with the bastard is not valid. Miran Mia passed the verdict. So the nikah never came into effect. Never. And I never lost my face either. My family's reputation is involved. Mirza felt immensely relieved. But what about the divorce? He asked. My dear Mia, no nikah, no divorce. So the 32 rupees were wasted, Mirza said sorrowfully. In no time, news travelled all over the neighborhood that Mirza was never married to his wife, that the nikah and divorce had both been unlawful. When Lajo heard the news, she danced with joy. The night that was her marriage and divorce was over. What made her happy was the fact that Mia had not lost face. She had genuinely grieved that he had lost his honor because of her. What a boon it is to be a bastard, she thought. God forbid, were she a legitimate child, even the idea of such a possibility made her shudder. Lajo was feeling suffocated at Ramu's grandmother's. Thought of house kept her worried. Mia could not have had it swept or dusted or for fear of theft. The place must be in a mess. One day, Mirza was on his way to the shop when Lajo waylaid him. Mia, shall I resume duty from tomorrow? Damn, said Mirza and walked away briskly. But I'll not have a maid sooner or later, he thought. Maybe this wretch, if none other. Lajo did not wait for Mirza to make up his mind. She jumped into the house from the roof, tied up her lehenga, and set to work. That evening, on his return, Mirza held his breath. It was the late B. Amma come back. The house was sparkling clean. A smell of incense filled the air. The pitcher was filled with water, and over that was placed a well scrubbed bowl. Mirza's heart went heavy with nostalgia. He ate the roast mutton and parathas in hushed silence. As usual, Lajo sat on the doorstep, fanning the flies away. At night, when she spread jute curtains on the kitchen floor and went to sleep, Mirza once again had a severe bout of thirst. He tossed and turned, listening to the provocative tinkle of her anklets. It clutched at his heart, as also a feeling of guilt. He felt he had been very unfair to her and had grossly underestimated the poor creature. A deep sense of regret overtook him. He lay cursing himself. Then, with a sudden damn it all, he got up, ran across, and collected the housewife from the mat. And so the story ends. What a wonderful, wonderful story. I really hope you enjoyed it. And I'll come back with another story in the next episode. Thank you very much. Let me know how you found it. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you the next time. Thank you.